There are two things that characterize Japanese cuisine. They got to be umami and texture. Today I'm going to show you how to cook a typical Japanese miso soup which is full of umami. So stay tuned to find out how you can apply this umami principle to bring your dish into the next level. Umami is a Japanese word, but I'm quite sure that all foodies knew it already after modern science has defined umami as one of 5 basic tastes. You probably know that we have those 5 basic tastes, that is sweet, umami, which by the way means savory, salty, sour and bitter, that our taste receptors in our tongue can detect. When we eat something delicious, we say umai in Japanese. Actually, umai and umami is related. One is noun and the other adjective. And by that token, Japanese cuisine is tasty. But there is a scientific reason that really characterizes Japanese cuisine as umami or tasty. You see, umami receptors respond greatly to amino acid glutamate. As such, some may practically equate umami as glutamate. But of course, there are other substances such as inosinic acid, guanilic acid that our umami receptors detect. So it's not all about glutamate. However, the game here is to let glutamates do the dominant playing role and rest kind of support it. But in this combination, glutamates and inosinic acid in particular, the umami gets supercharged. I was basically surprised to find out that Japanese cuisine has umami everywhere. It's really a dashi culture. And dashi basically means a broth or stock that you extract from food. Now, what conjure up in your mind when you think about broth? Vegetable, chicken, beef, bone broth? In Western Japan, particularly in Osaka and its vicinity, when they talk about dashi, it's an extract of dry konbu seaweed and katsuobushi, which is the flakes of dried bonito. Some restaurants may use flakes of dried tuna. Here I have, they are both chia nuki, and what that means is that they removed the dark meat part near the spine before processing. Now, big fish like bonitos and tuna, they have more developed muscles that extend outwardly from the spine. So the meats near the spine has more blood circulation that affects the color as they go through boiling, smoking processes, fermenting and shredding. Anyway, the chia basically is a strip of meat along the spine. So if there is one without chia, then there is one with chia and it's called chia ari. I have both of them here and you can tell them apart. The difference in color is quite obvious. So let's see, this is the one with chia nashi and this is the one with chia ari. Now chia ari is a bit fishy and chia nuki has a good fish fragrance to me. But there are two totally different grades. I usually buy cheap bulky chia-ari katsuobushi at Costco. Like what I have here, this mega size package. I keep forgetting to put them in a freezer after using them, so maybe that's the reason why it smells fishy and maybe it has oxidized a bit. So please remember to store it properly in a freezer. When you do that, make sure also to let the air out and zip it. But this chia nuki katsuobushi I bought in an upscale supermarket, they are super expensive, so I'll stick with the one from Costco. But for distinguished guests, I will use the expensive grade. Or even I will use tuna flakes. This is the maguro one I showed. It's also expensive. Basically, you get what you paid for. Now, a while back, I mentioned about how it's commonly done in Osaka. the approach may be different in other parts of Japan when it comes to extracting dashi because of the difference in water quality in various regions. The water quality in Osaka is said to be soft with regards to trace minerals, which is ideal in extracting umami out of konbu seaweed. Now, not all konbu is created equal, yet 3 regional brands, all from Hokkaido, are popular, each with distinct characteristics. They are Makonbu, Rishiri konbu, and Laosu konbu. I have here Makonbu, which is widely used in Osaka, and Rishiri konbu, which some restaurants in Kyoto use it. Let me show you. But the question is, what have they got to do with umami? Well, the common dashi, which is extracted from konbu seaweed, is rich in amino acid glutamates, whereas inosinic acid from dry bonito amplify the effects of umami. In a nutshell, all I care to say is how to extract umami out of konbu and bonito to make a good dashi. I used to think that miso soup is all about putting miso, but oh boy, I knew nothing when I discovered how dashi-rich miso soup tastes so good, to the point that I basically do not have appetite for miso soup without dashi, because the one without good dashi just tastes bland. So let's jump right into making good dashi that forms the foundation for good miso soup. So, with a pot on the gas stove, first I will put 15 grams of konbu in 1 liter of water. Oh, but before I do that, I'm going to wipe its surface gently with a moist paper towel. If you're worried about the white powdery stuff on its surface, don't be afraid, it's not a mold or anything like that. In fact, it's called mannitol and it's a umami substance, so don't scrape it off. Some cut up the konbu to pieces, but for this recipe, you don't want too many cutting edges. The benchmark for this recipe is to heat up with heating power that takes the water to its boiling in 10 minutes, which allows me time to cut up ingredients. I am cutting mitsuba, which is a kind of Japanese parsley, which I'm going to add them towards the end for flavor and color. It has a smoothing flavor. By the way, if you cut konbu to pieces, you get more numeri, which is a transparent slimy stuff that floats on top. Sometimes you can use it to trap aku, but we won't have much aku coming from bonito. I'm putting tofu, which is a bean curd. I just picked the package that can do 2 servings. Now if you are going to cut up on your palm, just move the blade straight down gently, and when the blade touches the skin, lift it up. Do not slide the blade, or use the cutting board, obviously. Well, I've been monitoring konbu dashi and it's into 12 minutes or more. Meantime, I taste it. What else to look for? Well, let me show you the color. That looks okay to me. Another indication is to check whether the skin is soft or not. For that, I'll take out the konbu. And press my nail against the skin of konbu, and if it leaves a mark, it's ready. It leaves a mark. Or make sure the konbu stays out of the water. Next move needs speed. I'm putting about 50 ml of water to the boiling dashi, then put 25 grams of bonito flakes. If you put the flakes to the boiling, it's going to puff all over. Stop the gas when it reaches the boiling. After 1 to 2 minutes, as the flakes sink, I'm going to scoop out aku. Aku is the scum that floats on top. I'm not sure whether most of the viewers can connect with this culinary definition, so I will use this Japanese word aku in this video. I mentioned about numeri a while ago. That sticky stuff is a water-soluble fiber rich in alginic acid and fucoidan. Healthy for sure, and a bit of it helps to trap aku and make it easy to scoop out. I think I've done enough. Now I'm going to strain dashi using a sieve with a cloth on top and going to pour out gently. You could alternatively use a paper towel. I'm checking to see whether it has enough depth to rest the sieve on the bowl. I don't want dashi touching the sieve. Well, since I'm making 2 bowls, I'm scooping out 3 bowls in a lazy way. But if you are guests at my household, I will measure out properly. Oh, make sure to keep the remaining dashi for later use. It will last for a few days in a refrigerator. As dashi is heating up in a pot, I'm going to dissolve 25 grams of red miso paste. Now this type of miso is quite solid, so I really want to dissolve it thoroughly. A fail-safe way is to put it in a bowl and pour out a portion of hot dashi into it and stir it with a beater. It's gonna take some time. Afterwards, I'm going to pour it back, but I don't want to pour back everything at once. I want to pour in maybe half of it first, then stir it, dissolve it, and then check the taste. It's not enough, though I knew it. But then I do again. I don't want to overpower with miso taste. The next step of straining miso soup is not much practice in a household kitchen, but do this if you want to make it smooth. Notice those crumbled bits of miso, even though I thought I'd dissolve it. I'm now pouring some of miso soup to aosa nori. It's been soaked in water and drained. I think you can skip this step and throw them directly to miso soup. At this last stage, I'm throwing in tofu because I chose to strain miso soup. So it would be better to think ahead to cut up tofu into smaller pieces so that it takes less time to cook. Needless to say, it's important to serve the soup hot. To that end, warm up the bowls by immersing them into hot water because cold bowl will drastically lower the temperature. I'm throwing in mitsuba. Since I don't want to overcook, I'm going to turn off the gas. I'm almost ready to put miso soup into the bowl, but I must apologize that the battery ran out to capture the last scene of putting aosa nori into the bowl. Omatase itashimashita. It's how you say when you serve. I hope you enjoy the content of this dashi-rich miso soup, which I believe will dramatically improve your cooking because umami principle applies to every cuisine. For myself, it has changed the way I approach a recipe. Before I thought I must stick to the recipe in order to create delicious food, but now I take a more relaxed approach. I also kind of look at the recipe in terms of what ingredients constitute umami substance. For example, when I look at bolognese spaghetti, a popular Italian pasta all over the world, I see them as glutamates from tomato, onions, and inosinic acid from minced beef. Inosinic acid is basically connected with tissue that use energy like muscle. So fish, meat, chicken contain inosinic acid. Whereas glutamates are available in konbu, onion, Chinese cabbage, tomato, cheese, and so on. Japanese dashi utilizes this umami principle of combining glutamates and inosinic acid, and its liberal use of dashi in soup, stews, side dishes, and many kinds of sauces distinguish Japanese cuisine as umami. By the way, they also have vegetarian recipe using guanilic acid deriving from dried mushroom. For the past decades, they have artificially refined umami called monosodium glutamate or MSG. If you are a guest in my household, I promise I will not use it. We don't have MSG in our kitchen. But if you want to impress some of your friends, have it up in your sleeve as a reinforcer to umami. But then don't invite me over. I get side effects. In next video, I will share more practical and less expensive way to make miso soup. Then I want to explore other foods that contain dashi later. I am Jun, and if Jun can cook, so can you.